Hi everyone, this is Jackie. Thanks for joining me tonight. We're going to make this cute little Easter treat box, and you can see it's got a fun little drawer filled with Easter eggs inside to match. And these are the Love You Always treat boxes. And I've also used the fine art floral ribbon and the sand and sea papers to embellish this. Now for the images, we're using the Oval Occasion stamp set along with the double oval punch. And I love bundles that have punches. They're just so quick and easy. You don't have to have any extra tools on your desk. Now this stamp set, while I'm using it for Easter with those cute little bunnies up at the top, you certainly don't have to use it for Easter with the So Lucky to Know You, the Happy Birthday, the Welcome Little One, Thank You for Your Kindness, and so on. It's quite a versatile set. Now let's make our actual treat boxes. So they come with two pieces, and you can see this first piece is actually the outside sleeve that we're going to decorate, and it's already assembled. You just need to open it and make kind of a rectangular shape. Now this second piece is a little more complicated. When I first opened it, I thought, oh my goodness, what do I do with this? Now I did do a slower video on YouTube where I go in detail and explain each step and the reasons for each piece and step. So if you go to YouTube and just do a search for how to put together the Love You Always treat boxes, you should find it. You might even want to put my name in there too, or Stamp Happy. Now just notice you've got these little tabs, these four little ones, and then you have the kind of long bits perpendicular to those. So you want to fold in those little tabs like I'm doing here, and just fold those long perpendicular pieces around it. I was having a little trouble here. Those little bits underneath weren't laying flat. And you'll see that it's got this tiny little tab right at the end, and that's going to lay flat down on the bottom of the box. And then you'll turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. You'll put those two little tabs in, and then take I just call it the long bit on the side, and fold it up and around, and then that little flat piece is going to sit on the bottom of the box. Okay. And then the shorter side that's left, you're going to press that down into the box, and it's going to have a little flat bit against the bottom too, and it's got a little slit in it. And then somehow the video cut out, but then the longer side folds down into the box, and that side has got a little outy piece that fits into that slit. So you've got the whole box assembled. It's very sturdy, and that bottom piece doesn't even require adhesive. And then it fits perfectly into that sleeve that we made already, and you've got this little cute little drawer or matchbook style box. Now we're using the sand and sea papers, and I'm using these two prints here, both of which are pink and yellow, or Blushing Bride and So Saffron. And the piece that I'm using here is 4 inches by about 10 inches. And I'm using my Stamp and Seal, or you could use Tombow glue, or you could use tape, and you're just going to put adhesive all over the back. And then I'm going to just lay it on my box about in the middle of the paper, and I'm just going to eyeball that and then wrap it around the box. So I'm just going to place it on the box. Now you could pre-score this, measure it up and pre-score it, but I find it's just as easy, and I think it looks totally acceptable to just use the box itself and crease the paper right around the box. And it just saves you some measuring and some steps for scoring your paper. Next, let's put the band around our box. And you can see that the base paper that I'm using on this sample is actually different than the one I used on the first one. The first one I used the one that looks more like sand. I guess they both look like sand, but this one's got more lines in it. Now the band that I have wrapped around the box, you can see that I've left some of the little bits in the die, which I know some of you will actually hate that, but I quite like that look. But you can pierce them all out if you want. So the die that I've used is this one here, this scalloped rectangle, you can see with the little holes in it, and it's from this set called Ornate Frames, which is a set of ornate frames. And I want to show you though how I got a die that is a rectangle to be such a long piece without cutting it. So what I've done is I've cut my paper to a little bit longer than the length that I ultimately want. Then I've placed my die at one end, and then I simply use a plate underneath the die and then a plate on top of the die, but both plates are only over the die where I want it to cut. So I have missed the part of the die where I don't want it to cut. So you'll end up with something that looks like this, where it's cut on three sides, but you can see the bottom edge is not cut. Now at this point, it's actually helpful to take your piercing tool and poke out the little papers out of the die so that you can lay it up against part of the existing die cut, and those holes that are already cut will actually kind of slot into the grooves in the die. But if there's paper in the die, it doesn't fit so well. So then we're going to rotate the paper around, and we're going to repeat that process with the plates. So we're cutting on three sides, but not on that middle side, or the side that's, going to cut through the middle, but we're not going to cut through the middle. So you'll end up with a long piece because we didn't allow those edges in the middle of it to actually cut. So hopefully that makes sense. If it does not make sense, just leave me a comment or get in touch with me. You can go to my website, stamphappy.co.nz or NZ, and just contact me from there. Then I have a piece of the Designer Series paper, same papers from the Sand and Sea, and that's 2 inches by about 9 3/4 inches or thereabouts, and I've just placed that on top. And then I'm going to put adhesive on the back. Now for the sake of the video, I used my Stamp and Seal, but I think that using your tear and tape or even your glue, it might just hold a little bit better because it's quite thick and it's going around the creases of the box. So I'm going to do the same as I did earlier. I'm going to place it about in the middle and then just eyeball and crease that band right around the box. And I think I actually got really lucky here because that just fit. Now that little white scallopy line through the join doesn't bother me, but if it bothers you, you could just make your Designer Series paper longer and make it look a little more seamless. Now let's put a little bit of Designer Series paper inside of our drawer. So I've cut a piece that is 2.5 by 3 7/8 inches, and I'm just going to put a little bit of Tombow glue on the back of that and slip that inside my drawer. Now I have all the measurements for all the sides of this box in my Hydrangea Hill class in the mail, and I've put a link on this video to that class because we do a hydrangea box, and I'll include all the measurements in that, and I'll show you the hydrangea box at the end of this video. So we're just going to slide that in, and then now when you open your box, you'll have some cute little chocolates or other treats in there, but then when the chocolates are all finished, the inside of the box is cute, and the box can then be recycled and used again for the next gift. Now let's put on our ribbon, and we're using the Fine Art Floral, and this is from an entirely different suite altogether, but I like that it kind of has a sandy look, but it's got some bits of gold in it too, so it's quite pretty and special. But I do think the gold and the pearls work quite well with the sand sort of prints in these papers. And there's no tricks to this ribbon. I'm just wrapping it around the box and tying it just in a bow. And so you just tie it in however way you learn to tie a bow. And if you never learn to tie a bow, then I've got a video on that too. I know a lot of people struggle with that. And then you need to have a pair of good ribbon scissors, and then just trim your ends how you like them. Oops, I've got one end a bit too long. And then I'm going to add, oh good, I'm going to go fix it. And then I'm going to add some of that polka dot tulle ribbon. At the time of this video, this is still in the catalog, but it's on the discontinuing list. So I think it's a great one to have in your stash because most of the time you just need like 2 or 3 inches of it, and then you can just kind of add it in with your other ribbons to just add a little something without it being too heavy or colorful, just a little bit of softness. So I'm just tying that in a simple knot around my existing bow. Okay, I'm happy with that. All right, now we're going to add our image and our words onto our box. And I'm going to start with just a white oval, and I've used that, or I've gotten the white oval from the layering ovals because our main image is going to be using the larger oval from the punch, so I can't really layer them because I'm already using the biggest one. So I pulled out my layering ovals. Now these are on the discontinuing list and they are discounted. If you don't have a set of ovals, I would suggest that you have a look at those because they are quite handy to have. But I'm going to add just a little bit of color to this to bring out a little bit more of the yellow. I'm using So Saffron because our box is quite pink. Nothing wrong with that, but we just want to add a little more color to it, or different color. And I obviously didn't have grid paper handy, so I'm using my notes as my scrap paper. And I'm just using a little bit of the So Saffron ink and a blending brush. And you see that I'm kind of holding it at the head. I find that easier. You experiment and see what you like, but that is one way that you can do it. And I'm just adding a little bit there at the bottom. Most of the oval is going to get covered anyway. And then I'm going to add that to my box just flat down with a little bit of Tombow. And then I'm going to add my bunny images up on dimensionals. You can probably see there in the corner of the screen that I've got them there, and they are already stamped on watercolor paper. So they're nice and thick. It's a nice thick sturdy paper, and I've stamped that in black StazOn because I am going to watercolor it, so it needs to be stamped with permanent ink. And I'm going to watercolor with Soft Suede the bunnies. And I don't know if you saw that or caught that on the video. What you do is you press the bottom of the ink pad and it creates a little puddle of ink in the lid of the ink pad. And I've got my water painter. And the main thing I found is to make sure that you've got plenty of water. It does take a little bit of practice, but I think the most common thing I see is people just don't get quite enough water and then the color doesn't move. So just make sure you've got plenty of water and then color in your little images how you like. And I've got some little brown bunnies, like chocolate bunnies. I didn't even think about that till just now. And then you can go back and add a little more depth to your images. You don't have to be too fussy though. If I show you a close-up later or in the pictures, you can see that they're actually not that well colored, but that's one of the nice things about watercoloring is that it can be a little bit imperfect and it still looks good. And don't be afraid to leave a little bit of white space either. And what you saw me doing there, I find that when I'm coloring something very small, if I just sort of squeeze the end of the brush, it brings it back to a nice fine point again. It's a little easier to do the tiny, tiny things like those little leaves that I'm doing there. And then I'm just going to color in just a little bit of the grass. Sometimes it's enough to just add a little hint of color here and there. You don't have to like full-on color everything. And then next I'm going to color those flowers in Melon Mambo, which is quite a strong color and maybe not one that you'd think to use with the Sand and Sea papers. And, well, I guess on an Easter project, but it actually is the color and looks pretty good. Now I'm just coloring the whole thing pink because I'm going to go back and add actually an enamel dot for the center of the flower. On the first sample I did try and color that middle yellow, and I found the two colors just kind of bled together because it's such a tiny image, and you know, you don't really want to have to be an expert to create a project that looks good. So I think just adding an enamel dot's nice and easy. Next, we're going to just punch out the bunnies, and you see how easy it is to use the punches when you just use them upside down, and you can line up your image exactly and punch that out. And now I'm just going to add that to my project using dimensionals. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to add the enamel dots. Now these are the in-color enamel dots, and they do come in all 5 colors. I've just used all of the pink ones and most of the bumblebee ones. I'm going to just add those in the flower. nice and easy. And then I'm also going to add some Wink of Stella. And I said here on the live video that I know that bunnies are not actually glittery, but I just think that it just adds a little bit of interest to them because they are quite tactile, like furry. So it just makes them that little bit more interesting. Okay, so now I'm putting on dimensionals and we'll add that to our project. All right, our bunnies are on, and now we're going to put the little end pieces on the box. It just looks a little more finished if you've got some little pieces on the end of the box, and those measure about 2.5 by 1.25 inches, and that will about cover the end of the box. Next we'll add our words, and I have taken the Sweet Friend from this same oval occasion stamp set, and I've embossed them in white and embossed it in gold. And I've decided I do like the white better on this particular project, but the gold also would look nice and would tie in quite well with the ribbon. Now I'm just going to use my scissors to cut those out. I quite like the look of scissor cut words, that little bit of imperfection, but if it's not something you like, I'm sure you've got a die or a punch that you could use. Now the gold ones though, I'm not going to get rid of. I like to emboss some extra bits, especially when you've already got all the stuff out and the stamp is out and inked up, so you might as well use it. So I put my extra bits in a little container. You could also put them actually inside the stamp set, so whichever makes sense to you and where you think you'll find it when you need it, either one of those would work. Now let's add some of the Artistry Bloom sequins. Of course, I love these because they really do seem to go with pretty much most everything, and maybe that means I use the same colors over and over, I don't know, but I do like them and they just add something nice to this. Now this is the original one I did, so you see it's a little more yellow in the background, but both look nice, and one's filled with pink matching Easter eggs, and nice and heavy. So a nice heavy box of chocolates is always nice. So now I have 2 of those finished. I do have 3 daughters, so I think I'll be making 1 more in the next day or 2. Now some other ideas that we can use the treat boxes for. This is the hydrangea box that I was mentioning earlier. It is on my website, stamphappy.co.nz, and you can see we've got the nice paper inside, but I'd made separate pieces for each of the sides, and so in the tutorial that comes with that kit, and it's got 2 card kits as well in that class. I'll give you all the measurements for those sides, or you can measure them yourself, but I have done that work for you. Now this one is from a Sweet Strawberry class I did in January, and this one we've got the paper wrapped around, but it's 3 strips of paper wrapped around, so it's kind of a different look, but it's the same concept as the one that I showed you this evening. And then the last one I want to show you is one that I'm actually going to teach in my April classes along with a matching card. And this one I designed to be suitable for Mother's Day or for a friend, but suitable for Mother's Day, coming up in May. So I've used the Artistry Blooms papers here. I absolutely adore those papers. Now those are also on the discontinuing list and discounted. So if you want some of those, I would suggest you get those early in the month if possible. So there's some ideas for you using the Love You Always treat boxes. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions. Please also leave them below. Thanks so much for joining me. This is Jackie Williams. Have a good night. Bye-bye.